In this video, I'm going to explain the similarities and differences between a product manager and a project manager. Now, on the surface, it would seem that there are a good number of differences between the two. One is product focused, of course, and one is project focused. But it's actually the skill sets that both of these require that are actually quite similar. So I'm going to talk about that. And when it comes to career outcomes and salaries, both of these are actually some of the more compelling opportunities out there. So make sure to stay till the very end where I'll talk about exactly that. So let's start with the differences between these two roles. The first difference is the most obvious one, which is the core responsibility for each role. Product managers are responsible ultimately for the financial success of one or more products in an organization. This means that they take the actions that give the product the best chance of success. This naturally means that they may be wearing a lot of different hats throughout the life cycle of a product. Product managers may find themselves working with customers to best understand what kind of features they need in a product. And in turn, they take what they learn from the customer and bring it to engineers that could build some of those features into a product where it makes financial sense to do so. And they may also work with marketing to identify what the most compelling message is to attract potential customers. And there's many more groups they could potentially work with. If you want a little bit more of a deep dive on the product manager role itself, make sure to check out the video that I have in the link of my description down below. I've been a product manager myself for a number of years throughout my career, so I can give you some of that detail. Now, project managers, on the other hand, are focused on projects that typically, but not always, have a defined beginning and an end. The projects can vary quite a bit in terms of scope and knowledge required, but you're often working with various stakeholders across an organization to see a project through to completion. Just as an example, it could be a project around process improvement on how you go about most effectively capturing leads and then effectively targeting them with marketing. Now, the second difference is the knowledge required. As a product manager, you're expected to be a subject matter expert on the product it is that you're managing. And depending on the company and the product itself, you may be required to have a lot of technical expertise in order for you to be as effective as possible. Now, as a project manager, the knowledge requirements can vary quite a bit from project to project. For example, if you're working on a project that deals with the federal government, you might need prior knowledge of working with that specific customer set to know what kind of unique requirements that customer might have. Now, having said that, I would also add that knowledge requirements aren't quite as rigorous, I would say. I would say what's more important is the skill set. And the skill set that's required here is the ability to be organized and to work with various groups, all of whom may have different priorities or levels of expertise. So that's actually a perfect segue into talking about the similarities. So let's dive into that. First similarity is that although one role is product manager, one is project manager, both of them actually require a good skill set in project management. As a product manager, you're actually involved, in a sense, with various projects at any given time of varying lengths and varying degrees of impact. It's often said that a product manager is the CEO of a product line, which it can be a little bit of an exaggeration, but there's a little bit of truth to it, and it helps make my point here in a second. As a CEO, you'd be focusing on various business functions that contribute to the success of what it is that you're selling. Functions like sales, engineering, marketing, pricing, maybe supply chain if you have hardware products. And all products have some kind of a life cycle with milestones along the way, much like a project. But then depending on what kind of opportunities or challenges come up with the business, you may be hyper-focused on a specific business function for some shortened period of time. And one might characterize that level of involvement as being involved with a shorter term project. Second similarity is that you're working with a lot of different groups. Generally, as a product manager, you're working with roughly the same groups of people throughout a long period of time. As a project manager, the various groups that you work with can change over time as the project evolves. And of course, if there's a new project, that may also mean that there are entirely new groups to work with. But any way you look at it, you have a really good opportunity to work with a lot of different teams, which in terms of visibility, it's great to be in either role, especially if you do a really good job and executive leadership notices. Now, regardless of which role you're in, I would highly recommend thinking in terms of how you can best serve others. Or said differently, how can you add value to others? How can you make someone else's job easier? Ultimately, you want to have a positive, lasting impact or impression with everyone that you work with. So let's talk about salaries. As far as salaries go, both careers or both jobs have the potential for great long-term growth in terms of income. Now, obviously, this will all depend on the industry, the company, your years of experience, location. Now, for both, you'll have a pretty wide range of expected salary, but here in the US, and this is pulling from a really excellent resource, one that I like a whole lot, it's called Glassdoor. It's all user-generated input. The average salary for a project manager is $92,000 a year with potential for up to $146,000 in what is termed as the most likely range. For product managers, you'll have a much higher average salary at $113,000, with the likely upper bound of that being $166K. In my view, product managers tend to be one of the most sought after roles at any company because it gives you the most well-rounded business experience of just about any role at a company. But what likely skews this average up is that product managers tend to be found in abundance at tech companies, which is an industry that tends to pay pretty well. The second note is that product manager roles tend to be popular landing spots for recent MBA graduates, most of whom end up commanding pretty sizable salaries, especially if they are coming from a top business school. Project managers, on the other hand, will likely skew a little bit lower because you'll find those roles in a greater variety of industries and companies, some of which perhaps don't pay quite as well as tech. But I wouldn't read into that too much. I wouldn't let it dissuade you. Both of these roles, product manager, project manager, both offer really strong career prospects. And so if you want to get a leg up on starting down either of these two career tracks, do make sure to check out some of the links that I have in the description below, where I link to some really popular online courses through Coursera. Google offers a project management professional certificate that I'd recommend you take a look at, and I've talked about that very briefly in another video. And University of Virginia offers a digital product management specialization. There are probably more software product manager roles out there than hardware product management, so the content here will serve you pretty well since it's more software focused. And even though it is more software focused, a lot of the concepts here are widely applicable in really any product manager role, even if it's in hardware. Now, for more content on product management or even other careers that you might want to explore a little bit further, make sure to check out the next two videos that I have here. And with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around.